Welcome back to the PracticePro YouTube channel. I'm Niki Khoshzamir, the CEO of PracticePro, and in today's video, I'm excited to talk to you about the timing of your law school application, as well as how to go about picking which law schools to apply to. If you're joining me for the first time today, this is the fourth episode in our Winning Law School Application series. I'll link below as well as in the info cards the other episodes so you can go ahead and catch up with the rest of us. I also hope you'd consider supporting me by subscribing to our channel and make sure you turn on the notification bell right next to it so you will be notified when we release new videos, not just about how to get into law school, but how to ace law school, learn more about legal recruiting, and how to go about finding those dream jobs and then ultimately climb up the corporate ladder. We're also going to be adding additional motivational speeches and inspiring advice by America's top lawyers. Today's agenda is pretty straightforward. First, we're going to talk about your application timing, and then we'll talk about law school selection. So if you're ready, let's go. First, let's talk about your law school application timing. The first question that keeps popping up is, when do I apply? And the answer is simple, early. You may ask, how early? And I will say, as early as you possibly can, as close as to when they open applications as you possibly can. What does that mean? Usually that would mean my advice to my clients would be apply in October if you can. If you need extra time to finish the supplemental essays, November would be great. And at the very latest, we want to get everything submitted by early December. This makes a huge difference. I know this based on my own experience, based on speaking to law students every year who've been admitted to top 10 law schools, based on PracticePro's coaching clients, individuals who applied in the spring, and they got into maybe top 30 law schools and they were happy with it, but their dream was to really go to a top 10 law school. And we decided to wait, and we applied the following fall. The only thing we changed was simply the timing of the application. Sure, we had a better essay, but the difference it made was not only being able to get into top 10 law schools and top 20 law schools, but to get admitted with money. Having spoken to former deans at top 10 law schools and running this theory by them, they have confirmed that it does absolutely make a difference. And the timing is even more important than that powerful essay. So some people say, well, it's January, February, I really want to go. Is it too late to apply? And my answer is always, no, we haven't hit the deadline. You can try. Maybe pick a smaller sample size and apply. And if you don't get in, or maybe if you get into some schools but not your dream schools, then you can make a decision. You can decide to go and try to do as well as you can so you can transfer to that dream school. Or you can also decide to sit this out like some of my clients have done and apply with the same credentials or maybe with a higher LSAT or a better essay as soon as we can in the fall. Finally, I get the question about, well, I'm ready to apply in September, I'm ready to apply in October, but I'm retaking the LSAT and I would like those scores to matter. Or I'm still waiting for letters of recommendation. Preferably, we want our application to be complete as early as we can, but I would prefer if you can put in your application whatever components of it we already have that is necessary to file the application in October or early November, even if it means the entire file won't be complete until later in November or December. Let's talk about why this timing matters. This is simply because it's a numbers game. At the beginning of the application cycle, when the admissions committee has to select 300 students or more, even though they have done this year after year, they don't know how this year is going to go. They don't know how high is the quality of the application pool. So one, you have better odds because there are more spots still left. Second is that I really believe that the individuals are less tired. We also have a program where we get sometimes between 200 to 250 applications for. And we always remember there are people who apply early because there are not that many people who apply early, so they're just memorable. And also, we have looked at fewer essays and we watched fewer videos. We're less fatigued, so like we have fresher eyes when we look at things. So maybe your credentials, your objective credentials are not going to be good enough to get admitted right away, but if everything else is fantastic and you're early, maybe you'll survive different rounds of cutoffs and you're left until the very end where they're just now giving the last few spots left to their, let's call them wild cards. And you could be one of those people strengthened and boosted by the fact that you applied so early and you have been waiting and you have been reiterating your interest to the school. You're going to get your shot. Let's now move on to the second part of this video, school selection. If you're enjoying this video, please do me a favor, go ahead and smash the like button. And if you have any questions about the timing of your application or law school selection or even anything else, make sure you leave me a comment below. I'll answer your question. And also, if you like this video and comment, as well as any of the other videos, you will be entered into our drawing at the end of this series to win a free customized coaching session so we can talk about your particular application. When it comes to law school selection, I have 2 rules and 2 initial considerations I believe you should keep in mind when making your selection. First, onto the rules. The first rule is diversify, diversify, diversify. You want to, just like you would do with the stock portfolio, regardless of whether you have amazing credentials and you think you will get into a top law school, but you should still diversify to see what do your safe schools give you in terms of scholarship money, so we can have possibly something, a little bit to negotiate for scholarship money for you from the top schools. Similarly, if maybe your objective criteria is not that strong, you want to be confident that you'll also bring something to the table. Maybe you've always wanted to be a lawyer. Maybe you have the great work experience. So even though we're going to, of course, apply to schools where we think we have a good shot, but you also want to be a dreamer and also shoot for the stars. So we want to diversify between our dream reach schools that we think we have a good shot at based on our credentials, and they are in geographies that we really are interested in. And interest means you want to practice there long term, or you just really want to be there, you want to try it out. And then finally, the third category you should diversify your schools in between is your safe schools. This could be the schools where you meet their credentials easily, and LSAT sometimes, when they share your score, some law schools will reach out to you and invite you to apply. They might even waive their application fee for you to do so. The second rule, which I almost hinted at, is cast a wide net. This is important not just to maximize your odds of getting into the best possible school you can get into, but it's also important for being able to then, in the second part of the selection process, when you are choosing between the offers of admissions you have, you can speak to the schools and you can have a little bit of a bargaining power when it comes to scholarship money, as well as sometimes we never know what we like until we talk to students who go there and go visit the campus and talk to alumni and really do some soul searching. So it's wiser to cast as wide of a net as you possibly can in this initial stage. Now that we've covered our 2 rules, diversify and cast a wide net, We are going to talk about the two main considerations you keep in mind when you're doing your initial selection of which law schools to submit an application to. In my opinion, the two things that matter most is the first, overall general ranking, the US News ranking. We are in a prestige-driven profession, and it matters. It does not mean you can't be a good lawyer or you can't be successful going to a lower tier school or even an unranked law school. I have some friends who have come from unranked law schools and they are tremendous lawyers. My job is to make your job as easy as possible, so instead of swimming upstream, we can always have the red carpet rolled out for us, right? So the overall ranking of the law school should be one of the considerations. And the second consideration should be the geography, where you want to practice, where you want to be for the next 3 years. Now, these are general rules, general considerations. That does not mean there are not exceptions. If you have a huge amount of debt from undergrad and you're one of those very few people who know 100% you want to graduate, you want to open your own practice, or you want to join your father's practice or your brother's practice and do X, and you're 100% sure about that, or you want to do public interest and you're not going to be making a lot of money, then we can talk about it. It might make sense to then pick money over ranking. However, even in those scenarios, I'm a firm believer that life just likes to throw us, in different loops and things change. So at the very least at this stage, because we're still applying, we're not really choosing, I still suggest that you do consider the overall rankings and you include those schools in your net, in the wide net you're casting to you have the choice. The most prestigious public interest positions also look at the top law schools. So don't make assumptions based on what you know. Try to speak to different individuals, especially if you have an interest in working for the government or working for public interest, clerking, becoming a judge. It will really be important to speak to individuals who have walked that path and ask them what really worked for them or what their challenges were. And again, as we talked about this when we came to LSAT prep, don't fall for law school marketing. Apply, diversify, like we talked about, and then once you get admitted, you go through the process of investigating the other things. How much money they give you, how much scholarship they give you, what's their strength in different practice areas, in business law, in IP, and what's your fit? If you speak to law students or if you go on campus, do you feel good here? Do you think you can thrive here? But I think in this initial stage, let's just try to catch as many fish as we can, especially big fish, and then go from there. So when it comes to law school selection, we've talked about some general rules and as well as some things to consider when you're making that decision. But I know what most of you are thinking. You still want some help really picking based on your specific file, your specific qualifications. And I wish I could be there with every one of you and look at your objective criteria, look at your essay, talk to you about your work experience, and then we can collectively together come up with a plan on how to pick the right law schools for you. But because I can't do that, I'm going to give you a general formula that I use for some of my clients. So my formula is we're going to allocate 50% of our budgets, the budget we have to apply to law school, to what we call the dream, the reach schools. I'm a dreamer. I think we should try for it. So maybe these are the schools where your objective criteria or one of them, your GPA or LSAT, falls, the 25th percentile or maybe even below it. But we believe that your application taken as a whole is strong enough that someone among this crowd is going to take a chance on you. So 50% to dream and reach schools. Then 30%, I'm going to allocate it to schools where I think I have a good shot at. Ideally, we want to, target the schools where we are, right at the median with our credentials, and they're also in our desired geographies where we want to practice or where we really want to be the next 3 years to try it out. And then I would dedicate about 20% of my budget to safe schools. These are schools that my credentials are higher than their median. They're maybe at the 75th percentile. I really think I have a big shot. Maybe the school sends me a letter, invited me to apply, and waived the application fee for me. Now, if they waive the application fee, I might just put them into the extra bucket and still pick other schools. Before we end this video, I want to make an illustration to bring home the importance of tweaking and modifying the 50-30-20 formula to your specific situation. So let's look at an example together. If you're a candidate that falls into any of the following 3 subcategories, your GPA and LSAT both fall at least around the median of a top 14 law school, or at least one of those, either your GPA or LSAT, is at the 75th percentile, even if the other one is lower, is at the 25th percentile, or maybe even lower than that. Or you're at the bottom of this, both of this, like you are at the 25th percentile, or maybe one of your objective criteria, your GPA or LSAT, is lower than the 25th percentile. But you have a tremendous story. One of those stories that makes you, when you read it in an essay, just pause and for the rest of the day be filled with gratitude for the privileges you've had in your life, and be filled with awe for your leadership, for your resilience, and for your story. So if you fall in any of these 3 subcategories, I would tweak the formula for you in the following way. I would take 50% of whatever budget that is, and I would apply to as many, if not all, of the top 14 law schools. Each one of these schools is unique. Maybe their numbers look similar, but they have different personas. I see this in the law students that I work with through PracticePro and colleagues and opposing counsel. There is a theme. I believe in the concept of self-selection, whether it's in the interviewing context as well as law schools when they pick their people. So I've seen this with candidates on the borderline where maybe one of their GPA and their LSAT in the 75th percentile, one is way below the 25th percentile. Sometimes by applying early and applying to every single school in the top 14, until now, I don't want to jinx it, they've usually been able to get into at least one. Of course, it's important that the rest of your application is A+, your essay, your resume, everything else. These individuals all wear. One of these law schools might see the potential in you and give you that chance. The other 50%, with those credentials, you're going to apply to the top 50 or top 60 law schools in the geographies that you are interested in. This is an illustration of how, based on these individuals, I tweak this formula. Now, if your credentials are on the weaker side and you want to go this year and you don't want to wait another year and try, we will again tweak this and modify it. Your dream schools, instead of being top 20 or top 10, they can become your 50% of dream schools. It could become top 30 schools or top 50 schools. If you have, again, any questions about your particular situation, feel free to either comment below, say hello, and ask your question. We can always also talk offline. You can email me, you can set up a coaching session, and I look forward to seeing all of you next week when we talk about the most fun, I think, part of the application, your personal statements. It's your saving grace. It's one thing that will, even if you're that amazing candidate with all the credentials, that's still no guarantee that you will get into your dream school among the top 10. So it's the personal statement that is going to bring it home, and we're going to talk all about that. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Until I see you next week, stay well, and if you haven't already, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button.